Most founders still copy Google. They hire for IQ, build companies full of perks like the famous dish foosball, bowling, or other gaming entertainment features. They add layers of product managers, and they assume a fun and entertaining gaming culture is what makes people actually happy at their workplace. Reed Hastings, he did exactly the opposite. He hired for judgment. He stripped away perks. He removed permission gates. And he designed a culture not to make people feel good, but to move fast, speak hard truths, and win on adaptability. While Google built a world class innovation lab that struggled to commercialize outside its core business, Netflix rebuilt its business model 4 times without breaking its culture once. And that's why it outlasted them in entertainment. Reed Hastings, he removed controls, he scrapped vacation policies, he paid engineers like Hollywood stars. And then he scaled Netflix into 190 countries without a single approval chain. The book is called No Rules, Rules, written by Netflix founder Reed Hastings and INSEAD professor Erin Meyer. It's not a hype story, it's a playbook. And what makes it different is this: it's not about how to manage people, it's about how to design a culture where you don't have to. Netflix faced 4 existential transitions in 15 years: DVD to streaming, licensing to originals, Hollywood to global. The secret to surviving all of them wasn't luck. It was a set of radical practices almost no startups dare to try. Like firing nice people, sunshining $100,000 mistakes, and running live 360-degree feedback dinners. This episode gives you everything: a behind the scenes look at how Hastings rewired the culture for speed, the 7 leadership lessons that deep tech founders must steal, and while transparency, candor, and trust are more than slogans, they are operational levers. And I will walk you through each one with concrete examples you can apply right away. So, if you are still scaling your company like a family, waiting for consensus, or hiding bad news from your team, you are already behind and losing. You just don't know it yet. But here is the good news. In the next 60 minutes, you will learn exactly how Netflix built a culture that outlearns, outhires, and outperforms the competition. And whether you are leading 5 people or 500, this model will change how you think about leadership. Now, here is why this episode matters to you, especially if you are building or investing in companies between Series A and IPO. The truth is, there aren't many people out there who have done this successfully. And culture is one of the biggest levers and blind spots between early traction and sustained scale ready for an IPO. So if you're a founder or a venture capitalist, your job is to decode the few playbooks that actually work. This podcast is part of the treasure hunt. We dissect what high performing companies do differently and how to apply it inside your own team fast. If that sounds like a mission worth supporting, here is how you can help. Like, share, and comment. And follow the show on your podcast platform of choice. Every single signal makes the show stronger and brings in more world class guests to share their real world lessons. So let's dive in. And the first part is, who is Reed Hastings and why should founders listen to him? Why is Reed Hastings the only founder who could build Netflix the way he did? Reed Hastings isn't a media mogul. He didn't grow up in Hollywood. He didn't come out of Stanford's D-School or an Ivy MBA program either. He was a math teacher, then a software engineer, and that outsider mindset, it's exactly why he built a company no one saw coming. Most founders scale by layering on rules, by hiring real managers, by standardizing everything that once made them special. Hastings, he did the opposite. Why? Because he already lived through the dark side of scaling. In the early 90s, when the internet was young, he founded Pure Software, a debugging tools company. It was successful. They went public. He was on magazine covers, one of the early days of the internet shiny stars. But behind the scenes, Pure was imploding. Every time someone made a mistake, they added a new rule, a policy, a form to fill out, a sign off. They tried to make excellence safe. But in doing so, they made innovation impossible. The smartest people started to leave. The company lost speed and got slower. And eventually, they sold it off. Reed walked away with money and a deep scar tissue. He swore, if I ever build another company, I will do it differently. And that company, yes, you guessed it right, became Netflix. From day one, Hastings focused not just on product, but on culture as an infrastructure. He made a vow, no rules, only responsibility. He didn't want managers who managed. He wanted leaders who built trust. He didn't want feedback to be a luxury. He made it a requirement. And when you already read Principles by Ray Dalio, you will see that they have a lot in common. To shape this vision, he brought in Patty McCord, one of the most radical HR thinkers in the Valley. Together, they built the now famous Netflix culture deck. The deck has been viewed over 20 million times. Facebook COO Sheryl Sandberg called it the most important document to come out of Silicon Valley. But this wasn't theory. It was a living operating system designed for speed, clarity, and reinvention. And it worked. Netflix survived and thrived through four disruptive industry shifts: DVD to streaming licensed content to producing originals, US only to global scale, tech platform to full stack studio. Each of those transitions could have killed a traditional company easily. But Netflix moved fast, stayed flat, and kept reinventing. Here is what Hastings learned across 2 decades. You don't scale with control, you scale with clarity. You don't build loyalty with perks, you build it with purpose. And you don't fix mistakes with rules, you fix them by hiring better people. Netflix bet on culture as its core product, and the result? It didn't just attract elite talent, it unleashed them. Today, Netflix operates in 190 countries. It rebuilt Hollywood. And at its peak, it won more Emmys than HBO. So when Hastings talks about sunshining $100,000 fairs, or running 360-degree feedback dinners, or paying top of market with no bonuses, he's not being provocative. He's being practical because he knows what doesn't work, what does work, and he has built it. And then he built something much better. So the big question is, what makes no rules rules more than a business book? Most leadership books give you slogans, not more. This one gives you a tested system that actually has built one of the most valuable companies on the planet in 2025. And if you stop here with listening to this episode, you will miss the full operating manual. No Rules Rules is not just about Netflix. It's about what every fast scaling company faces. How do you grow without losing your soul? How do you stay innovative when the world changes faster than your roadmap? And how do you build a team that doesn't need permission to be great? The book is structured like a flywheel. Every chapter feeds into the next. It starts with talent density, remove average players, raise the bar. It adds then candor. How do you build feedback loops that never stop? It removes controls, expenses, vacation, approvals. You don't need them. And it reinforces it all with transparency and trust. But let's be honest, it's not all sunshine all the day. Hastings admits this system is not for everyone. Some people break under radical freedom. Some cultures reject public feedback. And if your team is not ready, implementing these ideas can actually backfire. But that's the genius. No rules isn't a dogma. It's a conversation. It pushes you to ask, where am I slowing my company down and why? If you stop here, you will walk away with the gist. But if you keep listening, you will get 7 strategic moves, each one battle tested, sharp, and ready to apply. We will break down each one with real world quotes, examples, and coaching prompts so you can apply the Netflix system to your own company, starting tomorrow. Stay with me, because what comes next might just save you years of trial and error. Let's start with the first lesson, the blockbuster trap. Culture always outruns capital. Here is why deep tech startups die when they optimize for efficiency over reinvention. Many startup founders reach this brutal realization. The idea is good, customers love it, but it will never become a standalone business. So, what's the advice from venture capitalists? Go. Find a strategic partner. Get acquired. Integrate into an incumbent. And off they go, pitching to corporate giants, presenting the case with hope. But what do they get? Polite rejections, blank stares, and sometimes even amused laughter. That's when the self doubt creeps in. If nobody wants us, maybe we are not worth much. And actually, many founders just walk away and end their company. But not Reed Hastings, not his partner Mark Randolph. They lived this exact script. And here is what happened next. In 2000, Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph walked into Blockbuster's Dallas headquarters with a bold offer. Buy Netflix for $50 million. And in a book they write, how much would Blockbuster need to pay for Netflix? When he heard our response, $50 million, he flatly declined. Mark and I left crestfallen. That night, when I got into bed and closed my eyes, I had this image of all 60,000 Blockbuster employees erupting in laughter at the ridiculousness of our proposal. At the time, it made perfect sense. Blockbuster was the giant, 9,000 stores, billions in revenue. Netflix? Just a scrappy DVD by mail service, hemorrhaging cash. But here is what Blockbuster didn't understand and missed in the years after 2000. Netflix wasn't a DVD business, and DVDs are going to die anyways. It was a culture business designed to adapt, pivot, and rebuild itself from the inside out. Over 15 years, Netflix pulled off 4 major reinventions, from DVDs to streaming, from licensed content to originals, from outsourcing to building an in-house studio, from the United States only to 190 countries. Blockbuster, it never changed. By 2010, it was bankrupt. By 2019, only one lonely store remained, and I'm pretty sure that in 2025, the remaining 12 employees actually won't laugh about Netflix anymore. Netflix did not win because of better tech. It won for one simple reason. It had the better culture. And in the book they write, it was not obvious at the time, even to me. But we had one thing that Blockbuster did not: a culture that valued people over process, emphasized innovation over efficiency, and had very few controls. The culture, people over process, freedom over control, became their real mode. So if you're scaling from Series A to IPO, here is the trap to watch. You hire layers of management. You optimize for efficiency. You build systems to protect what already works. But in doing that, you quietly kill what built your company in the first place: curiosity, courage, reinvention. And Netflix did exactly the opposite. They stripped out approvals. They trusted their people and hired the right ones. They bet on culture as their innovation engine. Efficiency feels smart. It feels safe. Controls, it's safe squared. But in deep tech, safety is the risk and not the net. So if you only optimize what's already working, you lose your edge and eventually your future. What's the real lesson here? Culture isn't posters or perks. It's how your people behave when the stakes are high and nobody's watching. At Netflix, bold moves weren't just allowed, they were expected and encouraged. And that made all the difference. They survived 4 waves of disruption. Blockbuster didn't even survive one. Now, let's pause and turn this insight into action with questions to test the resilience of your own culture. The first one: what part of your company still runs like Blockbuster? Efficient, profitable, but already resistant to change. Which controls are you installing today that might strangle innovation tomorrow? Are you building a culture that reinvents or one that protects what's already working? And finally, what trends are you quietly ignoring because it threatens your current model? And here is lesson 2: build a pro team, not a family. Why talent density, not loyalty, drives performance in high growth companies. Startups, they love calling themselves a family. It sounds cozy, supportive, and absolutely safe. But in high stakes scaling, remember your goal is 100x, minimum a 10x, not a 2 or 3x. In these situations, loyalty without performance, it kills momentum. Families prioritize belonging. Pro teams prioritize performance. And if you're building a deep tech company, here is the truth: excellence is not a vibe, it's a system. And Netflix learned this the hard way in 2001. Reed Hastings had to lay off a third of the team. He braced for a backlash. In the book on page 5, he writes: in the days before the layoffs, my wife remarked how on edge I was, and she was right. I worried that motivation in the office would plummet. I was convinced that after I'd let go of their friends and colleagues, those who stayed would think that the company wasn't loyal to employees. But the reality is what happened next surprised him. And he writes also in the book on page 5, by noon, it was finished. Then, within a few weeks, for a reason I couldn't initially understand, the atmosphere improved dramatically. The office was suddenly buzzing with passion, energy, and ideas. Cutting low performers actually lifted the entire team to a higher level. Remember this: less people, better performance. Isn't that a contradiction? Morale went up, creativity surged, because the real drag wasn't headcount, it was mediocrity. Netflix calls this principle talent density. Only the best stay and everyone else gets coached out. On page 4, Reed Hastings writes: those who were exceptionally creative, did great work, and collaborated well with others went immediately into the keeper's pile. Betty McCord added: we learned that a company with really dense talent is a company everyone wants to work for. It's on page 7. This might sound cruel, but it's actually not. It's clarity. High performers thrive when surrounded by peers who raise the bar every single day. So here is the mindset shift you need as a leader in a deep tech company. A family, it means unconditional acceptance. A pro team in a company means high performance, high trust, high expectations. And a championship team that plays to win, it trains hard and it upgrades fast. And at Netflix, this philosophy became a system. On page 171, Reed Hastings writes, if a person on your team were to quit tomorrow, would you try to change their mind? Or would you accept their resignation perhaps with a little relief? And that question, that's the keeper test. If you wouldn't fight to keep them, let them go now. Because the truth is, mediocre hires don't just underperform, they do something worse. They drain managers' energy, they lower the team's IQ, and they drive away your top talent. That's why Reed Hastings says on page 7 a team with one or two merely adequate performers brings down the performance of everyone and drives staff who seek excellence to quit. And here is the kicker. Everyone already knows who shouldn't be there. They are just waiting for you as the leader to act. Netflix did not build a family. They built a walled garden of excellence. No politics, no stack ranking, just one simple question. Would you fight to keep them? And if not, they help them leave with dignity and hire someone who fits the bar. Because that's what real teams do. They care deeply and upgrade constantly. Let's take a moment and turn this principle into practice with questions to challenge your own team design. The first one. Who on your team drains more energy than they add? If they quit today, would you fight to keep them or feel relief? And the third one, how can you apply the keeper test this week to raise your team's talent density? And here we are at lesson number 3. Radical candor equals speed. Here is how to unlock peak performance with Netflix 4A's feedback model. Most teams, they avoid tough conversations because it can hurt feelings. People hold back, afraid to offend, afraid to look difficult. But here is the truth. Silence isn't kindness, it's betrayal. At Netflix, not speaking up is a problem. On page 18, Reed Hastings writes, at Netflix, it is tantamount to being disloyal to the company if you fail to speak up when you disagree with a colleague or have feedback that could be helpful. Without feedback, even the smartest team stalls. Here is why. Because your brain treats criticism like a threat. Fight or flight kicks in, creativity shuts down, but the data is clear. A feedback loop is one of the most effective tools for improving performance. We learn faster and accomplish more when we make giving and receiving feedback a continuous part of how we collaborate. No feedback means slow growth. Blind spots compound, misalignment festers. So what did Netflix do? They built the 4A's feedback model, a simple set of rules that changed everything. The first rule is aim to assist. Your goal is to help, not hurt. So don't weaponize feedback. The second one, feedback must be actionable. Be specific. Change behaviors, not personalities. The third one, appreciate. Receive feedback with gratitude, even if it stinks, and especially if it stinks. And the fourth one, acceptance or discarding, it's always on the receiver side. You don't have to agree. Just listen, reflect, and choose whether you can learn something, whether it's useful or not. This model turns feedback into a tool, not a threat. And then they took it a notch further. Netflix introduced live 360 degrees feedback dinners. The reason is, and Reed Hastings describes it on page 26, we hire for your opinions. Every person in that room is responsible for telling me frankly what they think. And he talks about himself as the leader and the CEO. And here is how the dinners work. 75%, that's the requirement for developmental feedback. 25% should be praise. The dinner has a strong moderator and zero anonymity. No gossip, no ambushes, just honest growth. And now pause. Imagine your next board meeting with that level of candor. Now picture the reality. Polite nods, unspoken doubts, safe conversations. Nobody should get hurt. And yet, Reed Hastings notes in the book, the higher you get in an organization, the less feedback you receive, and the more likely you are to come to work naked or make another error that's obvious to everyone but you. And those blind spots, they kill startups faster than external threats ever could. Feedback is not optional, it's oxygen. And at Netflix, they made that oxygen part of daily life, structured, candid, and kind. And that's how you learn faster, that's how you scale smarter. Now let's turn that principle into action. Here are 3 questions to upgrade your team's feedback culture. The first one, how can you make feedback as routine as your daily stand-ups? Are your conversations grounded in the 4 A's or slipping into gossip and generalities or what you did on the weekend? What steps can you take this week to run a live 360 session, formal or informal, to surface blind spots and build trust? Here is the lesson number 4. Pay like a pirate. Talent is the multiplier, not a cost center. Why is it necessary to pay top of market to attract and retain your rock stars? And why is this the most neglected principle in European startups and venture capital? Here is a mistake most founders and VCs still make. They treat compensation like a cost center instead of a competitive weapon. But in deep tech, velocity beats fairness. And velocity comes from creative rock stars who build in weeks what 10 average hires need months to deliver. Netflix learned this the hard way, and they learned it early. As Reed Hastings explains, a 1968 study from Santa Monica changed how they hired forever. In the book on page 73, he writes, the best guy was 20 times faster at coding, 25 times faster at debugging, and 10 times faster at program execution than the programmer with the lowest marks. That insight sparked Netflix rockstar principle. Hire one world-class talent. Pay them what they are worth. Never settle for 10 average people at a discount. And here is the move Netflix made. They ditched the bonus games and paid high base salaries from day one. On page 77, he says, people are most creative when they have a big enough salary to remove some of the stress from home. Big salaries, not merit bonuses, are good for innovation. And they made pay conversations honest and open. On page 86, Netflix wants to pay what will attract and keep talent. They estimate what that person could make elsewhere and offer just above it. No negotiations, no lowballing, just clear, confident, trust-based offers. So if you're scaling a deep tech company, this is your mindset shift. Stop chasing cheap deals on talent. Pay calm minds to create big ideas. Treat compensation as a signal of trust, not a variable cost. Because when you pay 10% above market for a true rockstar, you unlock 10x the outcome and 10x the loyalty. So, are you still using performance bonuses to drive creativity? That's a trap. Big payouts raise anxiety, they push people to play it safe. And if your best engineer is underpaid by 15%, they are not planning to stay, they are waiting to be poached. This might sound counterintuitive, but the thing with the bonus is it's not clear for a whole year whether you get it or not. That's uncertainty, and uncertainty kills creativity. I myself experienced that at the end of the year, you might experience a surprise. Your manager doesn't have time for the bonus discussion for months. He avoids it. And when he has it, he finds some superstitious ideas why you not get it. That's uncertainty at its best. So instead of doing that, Reed Hastings just ditched bonuses and said we pay a high base salary and give people one thing, certainty and peace of mind. And here is the deeper truth. Compensation is one of the most important factors of a good innovative culture. At Netflix, big salaries, big base salaries communicate. We trust you. We want your best thinking. We don't play games with talent. That clarity builds loyalty, focus, and innovation at scale. So if your product roadmap is bold, your pay strategy better be just as sharp. Let's test your thinking. The first coaching question. Are your salaries high enough to attract true rock stars? What would happen if your top engineer got a recruiter call this week? How can you make your compensation policy more transparent, fair, and magnetic? Lesson number 5. Bet bold and fail proudly, the Netflix innovation cycle. Drive breakthroughs by farming for dissent, testing bets, and sunshining failures. Innovation dies in silence. When ideas stay stuck at the top and teams wait for approval instead of taking a leap, momentum disappears. And in deep tech and tech, momentum is everything. Netflix attacked this bottleneck head on by teaching every employee to think like an entrepreneur. No more waiting, just place your bet. Reed Hastings puts it in the book on page 138. We use the image of placing bets. This motivates employees to think of themselves as entrepreneurs who typically don't succeed without some failures. Take Carrie's story. She wanted to launch an influencer campaign. It wasn't her boss's idea, it wasn't consensus approved. But she farmed for dissent, socialized it early, and ran the bet anyway. The result? A hit campaign that reached millions. It became a hit campaign. Everybody was against it, but she did it. Now imagine this whole process with approval, no hit campaign. To scale this mindset, Netflix built the innovation cycle. And here it is. The first step is farm for dissent or socialize the idea. The second one, for a big idea, test it out first. The third one, as the informed captain, make your bet. And if it succeeds, celebrate with the entire company. And if it fails, sunshine the failure so people can learn from it. 4 simple steps. Repeat them and your company becomes a learning machine. Let's break this down with the voice of Netflix behind every move. The step 1, farm for dissent. Before you commit, go hunt down objections. It will broaden your picture about your idea. You don't have to agree, but you have to know where the loopholes are. Find unspoken risks, light up dark corners. At Netflix, this isn't optional. On page 141, Reed Hastings says, it is disloyal to the company when you disagree with an idea and do not express that disagreement. The second step is socialize the idea and test it out. Don't build in a vacuum. Share early drafts with everyone who will be impacted. In one Netflix quarterly business review, 400 leaders broke into 60 tables, each debating. On page 145, Reed Hastings describes, should we spend more, less, or no money on kids' content? 400 brains digging into this problem. That one card prompt surfaced insights no executive could have spotted alone on their own. And when you have that, move to step 3, make your bet if you're convinced it will work. After the preparation, you decide and you own it. No passing the buck. Netflix trusts the person closest to the decision. And on page 149, Reed Hastings says, the person living and breathing the contract needs to be the one who signs it. I'm not going to take ownership away by putting my name on the deal. And this is something very common in successful companies. Um, there's a similar quote in the book, The Innovators, written by Walter Isaacson about Intel and their famous founder, Noyce, who said, look, here are your guidelines. You've got to consider A, you've got to consider B, and you've got to consider C. It's similar to Netflix, Farm for Decent, and socialize the idea and get some ideas where problems might be. But also Noah said, but if you think I'm going to make your decision for you, you're mistaken. Hey, it's your ass. So at the end of the day, let people decide they know what's best for the company. And then you get to step 4, sunshine fairs. When a bet flops, don't hide it. Highlight it. Everybody wants to celebrate successes, of course. But let's be honest, 9 out of 10 ideas won't succeed, but people need to understand what went wrong to avoid it in future. And that's why Netflix teaches a 3-step response. What did we learn? Don't dramatize it. Third one, sunshine it. Say, I was wrong, and then move on. Because transparency transforms mistakes into wisdom. And here is one big idea. By distributing decision making to the team instead of diluting it, Netflix unlocks speed, accountability, and innovation at every single level of the company. Founders often fear failure, but hiding mistakes guarantees you will repeat them. As Hastings says, we just fix the problems as quickly as possible and discuss what we have learned. Rapid recovery is the best model. You can read it in the book on page 138. Without rapid recovery, bold bets disappear, and so does your edge. Just think about the startup community here in Europe. How often, when people fail, they are punished and punished all over again. Success isn't about avoiding failure, it's about learning faster than your competitors and adapt the entire organization. Success is all about adaptability. The innovation cycle ensures every misstep becomes a stepping stone and every bold move gets the recognition it deserves. Let's turn this principle into practice. Ask yourself and your team, how can you build regular farming for dissent into your planning cycle? What small bets can your team run this week just to test something bold? How will you sunshine a recent failure to build safety and speed into your culture? Here is lesson number 6. Lead with context and not control. Empower your teams with clarity, not rules, to unlock speed and innovation. Here is the trap. You install more rules to scale, but end up slowing down the people you hired to move fast. In deep tech, every delay is costly, and nothing delays teams like micromanagement. You have felt it, endless approvals, expense reports, sign offs. Meanwhile, Your smartest people are waiting for permission instead of solving problems. That's not discipline. That's friction disguised as process. Netflix flips the script with one core idea: lead with context, not control. Instead of issuing orders, they teach principles. Instead of managing decisions, they manage clarity. Here is how Netflix makes it real, with four context setting tools you can adopt today. The first rule is act in Netflix best interest. A five-word policy replaces an entire rule book, and it's written in the book on page 66. Act in Netflix best interest. The story is when a journalist's 4K TV was mistakenly discarded, junior engineer Nick sprinted to Best Buy at 2 a.m. in the morning. And he bought a replacement without asking anybody. He didn't break a rule, he followed the principle. And following a principle means, is the second point, that you set context up front and monitor out back. New hires attend Netflix Employee College, where they are told, it's on page 59 in the book, if you can explain comfortably why that purchase is in the company's best interest, then no need to ask. Go ahead and buy it. No permission is needed, just clear intent. The third one, highly aligned, loosely coupled. This means Reed Hastings brings top leaders together at QBRs and E-staff meetings to align strategy and then steps back. On page 220, he says, aligning a North Star happens at our E-staff and QBR meetings. Once everyone knows the why, decisions happen at the edge, fast and focused. And finally, choose innovation over error prevention. When speed matters, don't over-design controls, design desire. As Antoine de Saint-Exupéry said, if you want to build a ship, don't drum up the people to gather wood and give orders. Instead, teach them to yearn for the vast and endless sea. Lead with vision, not micromanagement. Give your people purpose and they will self-steer. So ask yourself, what's slowing your team down more? Lack of information or lack of trust? Would you rather have a team that waits for sign-off or a team that acts with context? True leadership isn't about making every decision. It's about making sure everyone else can. When you lead with context, you stop being a bottleneck and start being a multiplier. Now, let's put this into practice and ask yourself and your leadership team. The first one, what critical context is your team missing right now? Which control mechanisms can you replace with a use your best judgment principle? And at your next offsite, how will you align your team on assumptions and direction and then step back to let them run? And here it is, the final lesson number 7. Transparency builds velocity. Drive trust, agility, and informed risk-taking through extreme transparency. In most companies, mistakes are whispered. Bad news is buried, and truth arrives last when it's already too late. And this is how companies run into bankruptcy. And that silence, it doesn't protect trust or the company, it destroys it. Secrets are heavy. They don't just stay hidden, they live in your team's minds, quietly distracting them. As the book puts it on page 103, secrets take up a lot of space in our brains. One study showed people spend twice as much time thinking about their secrets as they do actively concealing them. If you ever sensed a strange tension in a team meeting, odds are something was being withheld. Netflix, it has a radical cure. Wins, losses, doubts, and failures, put it all on the table and don't keep it under it. Because when people see the truth early, they can act early. Here is how Netflix puts transparency to work: 4 habits that build velocity through trust. The first one, sunshine secrets to build loyalty. Reed Hastings says on page 104, there is no better way to build trust quickly than to shine a light directly on a would-be secret. Reed Hastings avoids closed-door offices. He takes walking meetings, and every layer of secrecy gets stripped away. Second one, open the books. Netflix shares financials, forecasts, even tensions before they are finalized. On page 126, he states, when making decisions that will impact your employees' well-being, open up to the workforce early before things are solidified. It may cause discomfort temporarily, but it builds long-term alignment. And the third one, publish the cheetah story. He said when an employee in Taiwan racked up $100,000 in unauthorized travel, Netflix didn't bury it. Reed Hastings said on page 62, at the next quarterly business review, our chief talent officer told Michelle's story to 350 attendees. There was no cover-up, just clarity, consequence, and a renewed standard of trust, and also an improved context. And the fourth one, admit and model mistakes. Reed sets the tone himself. On page 123, he says, every time I feel I've made a mistake, I talk about it fully, publicly, and frequently. Broadcasting failures encourages your people to act courageously. When leaders sunshine failure, others stop hiding theirs. The fear is always the same. If I am too transparent, people will panic. But the opposite is true. When you share openly, especially what could go wrong, people trust you more. As the authors write, when you share information that could sabotage your success, people think, if she'd tell me that, she'd tell me anything. Your trust in me skyrockets. Extreme transparency is a speed lever. When teams have the whole picture, they move faster and with more precision because they are not second-guessing leadership. In deep tech, where risk is the norm, trust is your operating system. Sunshine builds that trust quickly, cleanly, and permanently. Let's translate that into action. Because the truth is, your team already knows where the silence is. The question is, will you name it? Here are 3 coaching questions at the end. What information are you currently withholding intentionally or by default that would actually empower your team? How could you sunshine a recent failure in your next team meeting to normalize learning from mistakes? And the third one, which area of your business is operating in shadows and what would it take to open the books even partially? And here we are. At the end of this recording, let's sum it up with my key takeaways, the 7 moves you can use today. Let's bring it all together. If you remember nothing else from this review, remember this. Netflix didn't scale by adding more rules. They scaled by removing friction. Here are the 7 plays you can steal. The first one, culture outruns capital. If you don't reinvent your company faster than the market changes, you are Blockbuster with a better branding. Second one, talent density is a growth strategy. Keep only those you'd fight to keep, and the rest, help them find their next chapter. The third one, radical candor unlocks speed. Silence feels safe, but feedback saves companies. Build it into your weekly rhythm. The fourth one, pay like a pirate. One calm rockstar outperforms 10 anxious parting hires. Pay top of market transparently. The fifth one, bet boldly and fail proudly. Don't seek consensus, seek insight. Run small tests and sunshine the failures. Number 6, lead with context, not control. Give people the why and trust them with the how. That's how you scale yourself. And the seventh, transparency builds velocity. Tell the truth early, open books, sunshine losses, and make trust your operating system. Each one is simple. None are easy, but together they form a leadership model designed for speed, scale, and reinvention and maximum value for customers and your shareholders and your employees. Here is what I loved in the book. No rules doesn't preach, it challenges. It made me ask, where am I still optimizing for control instead of trust? Which rules am I hiding behind? What would it take to let go without losing grip? The part that struck me the most, compensation. Netflix philosophy that you should pay top of personal market from day one. It reframed how I think about loyalty, performance, and trust, and also gave me an interesting perspective on the European ecosystem where HR expenses, especially in the startup and scale up world, are just treated like cost centers and unnecessary expenses. But remember one thing, at the end of the day, the only thing that stands between your investment in a company and a successful exit is actually the team building it. Think about it. Now, what gave me a pause? This culture isn't for everyone. It demands emotional maturity, self motivation, and resilience. If your team isn't ready, rolling this out too fast could backfire. Still, if you're building for scale and want to run lean without losing speed, this book is a blueprint. If you found this episode valuable and want the full system with all the context, anecdotes, and leadership tools, get the book. Use the link in the show notes to support the podcast. And if you are serious about applying this inside your company, let's talk. I help founders and teams put this into action one lesson at a time. And that's a wrap on No Rules Rules, one of the sharpest operating manuals for modern leadership I have ever read. In the next episode, we will dive into 20 minutes recap of one of the best episodes of the last year. It's another powerful lens for building high performance teams in deep tech and beyond. Thanks for listening, reflecting, and growing with me. If this helped you, share it with one founder, one investor, or one leader who needs to hear it. And don't forget, on the platform you're listening to the show, follow it. It helps attracting more great speakers and bring more book reviews to you to help you scale faster and scale better. Until next time, stay bold, stay kind, and keep building.